Ukraine recovery conference, Ukraine's recovery conference in the European context. And that is the title of our panel discussion tonight. Those who know me know that I laugh and I used to talk about Europe. But if you expect me to deliver an analysis of yesterday's result, I must disappoint you. This is not the time and place for this. Tonight, all our attention should be focused on Ukraine. Nevertheless, some of the results of the European election of yesterday in some of the member states of the European Union are also on which is concerning support for Ukraine worrying, looking to those parties who won seats and votes who doubt about support for Ukraine. Today we are discussing recovery while Russia is still waging their brutal war, destroying houses, destroying infrastructure, destroying lives day by day. We must and we will, as Europeans, support Ukraine and the Ukrainian people in their effort to defeat the aggressor. There cannot be any doubt about that. What we must discuss today is that winning the peace is as important as winning the war. Winning the peace is about perspectives for those who fight the war. Not only those on the front lines, but also state officials, public servants, teachers, factory and public transport workers, nurses or doctors. They are all important to the war effort, and they want to know what they are fighting for. And precisely for this reason, it is important to talk about recovery even during the war. Allow me to mention a historic example. A historic example for this is the United Kingdom. While they were victorious in the First World War, they missed out having a plan in place for after the war. And to not repeat the same mistake, after World War II, the Labour Party wrote in their election manifesto for 1944-45, I quote, "Victory in war must be followed by prosperous peace." And I continue to quote, "The nation wants food, work and homes. It wants a high and rising standard of living, security for all against a rainy day, and educational system that gives every boy and girl a chance to develop the best that is in them." End of the quote. This, in my opinion, is what Ukraine also needs today. And this is why representatives of our nations are gathering here today and tomorrow in Berlin. Integration into the European Union, and therefore I want to get back to what I said at the beginning about the European elections. Integration into the European Union is, for many Ukrainians, equal to winning the peace. It is the perspective worth fighting for. But the road towards the European Union is not easy. We are all fully aware of that. And I believe that our common task between Ukraine and the European Union is to develop a long-term vision of our common future, design a realistic roadmap towards attaining it, and manage the immediate daily challenges and pressing needs in the best interest of the citizens of Ukraine. Dear guests, ladies and gentlemen, and dear ministers, before I leave the floor to our panelists, I would like to mention and thank our partners from the London School of Economy, the Kiev School of Economics, and the Klingendahl Institute. Without them, this event would not have been possible. With this, I would like to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. And I wish all of us a fruitful and a thought-provoking debate. Thank you very much.
The micro is open already. Thank you, Martin Schulze, dear ministers, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are having a little bit of a preview tonight. There is the huge conference in the next 2 days about recovery of Ukraine. And I'm sure that we will touch many topics that will be raised tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. I'm very happy to welcome Yulia Sviridenko from Ukraine, first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Economy of Ukraine, and Svenja Schulze, Federal Minister of Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany. I'm glad to have you here for this talk tonight. What is the plan tonight? To give you an idea what is expecting you in the next hour and a half. In the beginning, the two ministers will each give a short introductory speech. Then we will have a discussion here at the panel. Yulia Sviridenko has, unfortunately, but I have to say not totally unexpected, to leave earlier, but she brought two vice ministers to step in. Actually, three. Oh, okay. I don't have the name of the third one. I only have the name of the two that I suppose will be sitting on the podium on the panel. It's Volodymyr Kazio and Tetiana Berezhia. If you have the impression that maybe we did not touch the topic that you find pressing, there will be a chance and there will be enough time for you to ask questions in the last half hour, and after that there will be a German Stehempfang. I do not know what this will be in English. Martin Schulze would. So, Yulia Sviridenko, I'm very glad you made it to Berlin and you are here tonight. The founder of the organization Razum We Stand, Razum We Stand, Together We Stand, Svetlana Romanko recently said in terms like concerning recovery, maybe recovery is, quote, a talk about a bright future that might never come, end of quote. That is pessimistic, but considering what you see when you travel Ukraine during wartime and you go to places like Kharkiv, and I've been to Kharkiv, beautiful Kharkiv, many times, the impression is that as soon as anything is rebuilt, any kind of energy infrastructure, any bridges, any streets, any schools, Russia is targeting it with even more rage. So the question is it only one recovery we are talking about now, or will there be maybe two recoveries? Will there be three? Is it like an endless recovery? In other words, is it too early?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for hosting us here. It's a big pleasure for me. Tomorrow, Ukraine Recovery Conference will start, and actually for me, it's, I would say, the first public event within our travel to Berlin. And actually, the question that you have raised is extremely important. And frankly speaking, yes, we visit in different types of discussions on a recovery conference, on the reconstruction of Ukraine, and actually it's the most popular question. Is it Is it not too early? I would say not. It's not early because Ukraine keep working and keep fighting, and Ukraine actually make it simultaneously in parallel. And I think that number of Ukrainian economies actually shows resilience of our country, because during the first year of a large-scale invasion, the economy dropped up to 30%. It was huge impact on economy. Last year, we grew up to 5%. This year, we expect growth at, I would say, at the beginning of the year, we expect that it would be 4.5%. Now, because of the attacks on energy grids, of course, we reconsider, and it would be less, up to 4%, but still, economy is growing, so it means that it makes sense, because we are balancing and we are working, as I say, and fighting, and without this work and without this fight, we won't be able to pay for this existential war. So that's why what we need to do is to restore the economy, to be able to fight, and also not less, I would say we need to show signal to Ukrainians living abroad that it's also, we also create incentive for them to return back. Because otherwise we're not able to wait until the war will be finished to start to reconstruct or to restore our residential building, to restore our social infrastructure, because we need Ukrainians now to return back. So that's why I think it's crucial during the wartime to continue working, because if you, for those who have not been to Ukraine, of course we invite you to come, because I think that you might see that Ukraine is a good operational country, with a good operational economy, with a good operational main sectors like a banking sector, like a transport, logistic. Svenja just returned back, I would say, from Ukraine several weeks ago, so she has this experience, and I think that she understands that we need to think about the reconstruction and recovery right now, not to wait until we'll be finished, because we need, as I said, to find a way how to finance our wars that is existential for us, and what kind of signal we should show to Ukrainians living abroad. I would say for us it's important.
So after the most popular question is answered, please, we are happy to hear you, your speech, your introductory notes, when you hold them now. Oh, you don't have to, no, you will sit, right? Okay. You sit.
Maybe we can switch to Svenja, then I will have my speech.
Oh no, please go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead, go ahead, we're waiting.
Okay. Should I make from here? So first of all, I would say once again that we're really honored to be here and to have this discussion. And from London to Berlin, I would say that we have learned many lessons on European integration that are already forming the foundation for our recovery. So during the London URC, there was an announcement of the creation of new European financial tool. It calls Ukraine Facility. And over the past year, in partnership with European Union, with the European Commission, we have developed an integrated economic development plan with a medium-term horizon, very clear structure, and we are defining financing of the measures in this plan. Normally, it takes 2-3 years to work out this type of plan, but it was just less than 1 year. And together with partners from European Commission, so we managed it in less than 1 year. And actually, we turned a challenge into a new opportunity. And we demonstrate our ability to work accordingly with EU standards and requirements in constant consultation with the European Commission. And we managed to complete it in sprint. And I also sure that we would succeed in this marathon run to EU. And this year, I think that we have shown that we really can. So essentially, this document, Ukraine Facility Plan, that have been ratified by Verkhovna Rada just a few weeks ago, it's a roadmap for economic recovery, because it consists not only of 50 billion itself, but it consists of reforms list that we, like a country, should implement within next 4 years. And it includes reforms, it includes long-term comprehensive support, it includes close integration and necessary investment. Also, I would like to inform you that last week, what we were trying to do, we made kind of exercise. We took all these IMF requirements, we took Euro Commission requirements, and we made a matrix of reforms just to understand how many reforms we should implement within the next few years. And you might be surprised, but during the wartime, we implemented 206 conditions, yes, just in 1 year. In 1 year. And 410 recommendations that Ukraine will fulfill this year. It's just for your understanding that we are not just keep fighting and trying to maintain the economy, but also we're trying to be closer to EU, and we're trying to implement all these indicators and reform to have more strong institutions, so to be able to build a prosperous country after the war will be finished. So for us, it's a lesson of survival and resilience, but also it's experience that international financial institution will use worldwide. There are still a lot of work that should be done ahead, and our current priorities are following. So first of all, it's restoration of the energy sector. We have lost half of our generation capacity during the last 2 months. So that's why during the Ukraine Recovery Conference and during the other events, all of our focus will be on energy recovery, because we have very tough challenge. We need to restore the destroyed capacity, at least half of it before the heating season, and we need to find a way how to bring, with help of our partners, a new generation capacity before the heating season. So actually it's rather challenging, tough, and because we have lost, like, as I said, 50% of generation capacity. And you understand perfectly well that if we speak about economic recovery and we speak about the livelihood of Ukrainians, so we need to bring light and heat to Ukrainian houses. So that's why during this conference we will pay as much attention as possible to this issue. Second, we need to get air defense systems. Despite of the fact that this is economic conference, this issue like fully impact on economic and livelihood of Ukrainians. Without air defense system, even if we would be able to restore energy capacity, we won't be able to protect it. If we want to have industrial zones, if we want to have economy operating, so we need air defense systems. So that's why we would emphasize it during this event as well. Also, we want to be more self-sufficient. That's in sense of finance, in sense of delivering the weapons. So that's why, based on the fact that, yes, we are really grateful to our partners that support us so much in macroeconomic finance, in defense delivery. We start to produce our own defense, our own weapon within the country. And we triple the production of weapon within Ukraine. So that's why it's without victory on the battlefield, we won't be able to achieve victory in the economic area. We are now working on the second, I think it's confiscation of Russian assets. We're working together with a partner from US, together with partner on EU, on the frozen Russian assets. Russia should pay for the damage that have been caused by this war. So that's why we're working, and we can consider like the preliminary decision on the income from the frozen Russian assets. But of course, our final idea is to get this at least 300 billion, because based on the World Bank report, the damage caused by Russia invasion is more than 500 billion US dollars. So it does not cover even the half. And this 500 was not the final number, because they still the war is still ongoing, and the damages that caused is huge. Also, we understand perfectly well that we want to develop more export capacity and market access. But I would say that on April, the export volume was 13 million tons, so it almost pre-war volume of export. And now we need to create, as I said, conditions for returning of Ukrainians back to the country and find a way how to attract investors to come to Ukraine despite the fact of war. But I would say last year, foreign direct investment was amounted around 4.2 billion US dollars. Actually, it's more than in relatively peace time, 2016 and 2017. I just compare for myself. So that's why it's also partly answered on your question. Is it early or not early to start the reconstruction and recovery? You might say the country is operating. So to rebuild, of course, I would emphasize once again, we need to rebuild the energy sector because it would influence on all others indicators that you just mentioned about. And more rapid economic growth is essential for us. So that's why I would emphasize for ourselves that we require strengthen the macroeconomic foundation, accelerate economic recovery, and strengthen the potential for growth. But growth won't be possible without investment, so that's why we're welcoming companies from Germany to open Ukraine for itself, and we, like a government, are able to provide different types of incentives so to encourage them to come. And we urgently need private investors because all these 200 indicators and 400 reforms that were implemented during the wartime is not a guarantee that Ukraine will face the economic growth. To do so, we need investments on the level from 10 to 30 billion US dollars per year. So that's why it's our aim for the next few years how to attract investors to come despite of the effect of war. And finally, because I have too many pages, I can. You said that I have just 40 minutes.
Always too many pages.
Yes. So I would say that the motto of this URC conference is very important, and I think it's we a little bit changed this year. So this year, the motto of the Ukraine Recovery Conference called like United in Recovery, United in Defense. So, but I look at this motto in more broader sense. Not only in defense of the battlefield, but we need to be united in the economic area. And I think that preliminary, I look at the deliveries from this conference, and I think that actually it should be very successful as an efficient conference, and I'm really grateful to Svenja for her active involvement in this preparation. Without your investment, without your joint project within Ukraine, we won't be able to succeed, we won't be able to get additional economic growth. And we need it, as I said, as long as war is lasting. All macrofinancial aid, I would like to emphasize once again, is covered the social needs. But if the war is lasting longer, we need to find a way how to allocate more resources to finance this existential war. So that's why we need more investors to come, we need more joint ventures, we need more localization production within the country, and we need more efforts to do so to gain the victory. And sometimes, even during today's visit in Berlin, I've heard the idea that Europe is a little bit tired of the war. So I think that there are still huge risks for our country to lose our sovereignty and independence. And I just want to remind it once again, Ukraine under the risks. I know that you made a lot during the last 2 years, but we need together to make more so to succeed. Because I want to say once again, we are fighting not just for ourselves. We understand perfectly well that in the next, if the Ukraine fails, the next one is going to be Baltic countries, Poland, and then look at the map. So that's why we need your efforts. We need you to be here with us in Ukraine. I'm grateful for those one who traveled to Ukraine, for this German company that expanded their activity in Ukraine during the wartime. We're really, really grateful for that, because it's your contribution to the victory. So thank you once again.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for these topics. We will dig a little deeper later on. But if you can answer shortly, I'm sure you can talk about this the whole evening, but shortly, what do you make in, like, among the Ukrainian delegation? What do you make out of the elections on yesterday? Because it doesn't make it easier for you. I mean, you have right-wing parties all over Europe gaining ground, and not all of them are against Ukraine, but some are. And you have, in November, you have elections and Trump might come back. So how do you, is Ukraine running out of time a little bit, or is it something that you look at from a totally different perspective?
Well, looking like from a totally different perspective, because actually I emphasized several times that for us it's an existential war. It's true. So we're not, we're not able just to stop this war based on the elections, because for us, as I said, we have not started. Russia have possibility to take back their troops. Russia can make the possibility to stop the war. For us, it's existential war. So no matter what kind of external conditions, we will keep fighting until we get the victory, because so many people, we have lost so many people during this, I would say 10 years, because actually the war is lasting for more than 10 years. So that's why we need to get the victory, and no matter what, I would say like this.
Yeah, this is something I heard a lot in Ukraine, no matter what. Thanks a lot. Svenja Schulze, we will be hearing a lot about the needs of Ukraine and what is necessary to help Ukraine, how to support Ukraine. But if we switch the perspective in this topic, how can and how will Europe and Germany benefit from the recovery of Ukraine? What are we gaining? What is in it for us?
I think it's also important for us in Europe. It's important for the world. Because what we can see in Ukraine is people who have a lot of willpower to fight against Russia, to fight for democracy, and seeing how, in Lviv they always say they are unbroken. What that means, that people fight 2 years in a war against the ones who want to take their country away, fighting for democracy. That is something I am always impressed by, seeing the willingness and all the power of the people in Ukraine, and that is something that is also good for EU. And on the other hand, in the whole of EU we have a lack of powered skilled forces. And in Ukraine, you see a lot of people with a very, very good education, who are very also convinced that digitalization is part of the future, who are a nation that is living digitalization much more effective than we do that. So learning from that is also helpful for the EU. So we can profit from each other. And Ukraine is not only a market; it's a lot of people who bring power, energy, and willpower in the EU.
Thanks a lot. This is strong support. Svenja Schulze, you also prepared a short note.
Yeah, I just want to add what Julia said before. It is really important that we stand firmly with Ukraine, because it is not us here in the room rebuilding Ukraine. Ukraine is rebuilt every day by the Ukrainians. And what we can do is to support them in that and stand for a free, for a prosperous, for a modern Ukraine. And that is something that what we both advocating for. Let the Ukrainians in the driver's seat, they know best what is needed in their country. And let us support Ukraine in this endeavor as long as it is needed. And what we do now in the next 2 days is this Ukraine Recovery Conference. We prepared that for a long time now. We jointly organized that with our teams. And what we want to do at this conference is a whole of society approach. So we invited not only the heads of states and all the ones who are normally at such conferences, we also invited civil society, municipalities, and the business community to take part, because everybody is needed. It is not enough when the governments are engaged. We need civil society, we need the local level, and we need also the business community to help to rebuild Ukraine. And what we both always raise is that women especially important in that process, because Ukrainian women are disproportionately affected by the consequences of the war, and at the same time women are now strongly represented in politics, in economy. They are active in humanitarian aid, they are active in reconstruction. And at the Ukraine Recovery Conference, my Ukrainian colleague and I, we will launch an alliance among donors, the private sector and civil society, to highlight the important topic of the women in Ukraine. They do such a fantastic job, and we need to take more awareness what is needed for them to be successful in that. Beside that, that I would like to mention in the beginning, we need 3 other alliances that we will launch at this Ukraine Recovery Conference. Training of skilled workers, strengthen communities and municipalities, and boosting the economic reconstruction. Julia mentioned that before. When we talk about the economic reconstruction and the training of skilled workers, we also have to talk about the role of trade unions. We did that before here in the beginning. The prospect of the Ukrainian people, therefore, decent work is needed. We need fair wages, we need workers' rights. That is crucial for the economic growth and for social justice, and that is crucial for all the Ukrainians that are abroad and want to come back to Ukraine. It's not only about work, it's not only coming home, it is also about fair wages, about economic growth that we need to take into account. And in the coming few days, we will work in 4 dimensions. It is the business dimension, to engage the private sector in reconstruction and economic growth, the human dimension, to mobilize human capital, skilled workers, the local and the regional dimension, because we need municipalities, we need regions for the recovery, and the EU dimension to prepare Ukraine for the EU accession and to related reforms. And seeing that 4 dimension, that means we have the Lugano principles of how Ukraine like to recover, and these 4 Berlin dimensions that shows all the things that need to be addressed in that, and helping Ukraine to be successful in fighting against the Russian aggressor. That is really important, and Ukraine is not only not just a neighbor, it will be a member of the European Union, and therefore it is also important to talk about the economic perspectives, about what is needed for the economy, and that is what we have done here today and what we will do here tonight in the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senja Schulze.
great gender balance panel. I
Yes,
like it very much.
If I understand it right, your ministry spent 1.3 billion euros on Ukraine so far. A little bit more, a little bit less?
Yes, but it is not only about spending money. I know that is a number.
That's just the beginning of the question.
Yeah, it's just a number. It is about working together, hearing what is needed. It's a joint endeavor, not only about money. It is really a joint approach that we have here.
It is not only about money, but it is also about money.
Yes.
We agree on that. I mean, just like pledges of support do not help anything if you want to rebuild the bridge. The question is, and it's also like the question that is after Sunday, it's even more pressing. There are, is there a possibility, is there a risk that the saving targets of the finance minister might jeopardize future plans? I mean, the social democracy and the government did not come out really strong, let's put it this way, out of this Sunday elections. So how is this affected, and can it be affected, or do you defend it like a lioness?
I think everybody in the government is aware that Ukraine needs our support as long as it's needed, because Ukraine is fighting for democracy, and that needs to continue. It's Ukrainians fighting for our democracy, and therefore they need our help, and that means money. That means working together on helping the people to survive in that endeavor. After 2 years in a war, that means a lot to the people who live there, and helping that they can do that they still fight against the Russian aggression, that is important for us. It is also part of our security to help Ukrainians. And everybody is aware of that, and that needs to be taken into account also in the discussion of a budget, because we can't save, we need to invest money also in our own security, and that means to invest in Ukraine.
Thank you. Yulia Sviridenko, the Ukraine, everybody knows it, who has been there for even like a day. Ukraine is divided by war, is a country divided by war. Like a part of Ukraine, especially in the south, Donetsk and Luhansk region, is occupied. You have the frontier cities or the pre-frontier cities, like, for example, Kharkiv, Chasiv Yar, Konstantinovka, small cities, big cities, and you have places where everybody knows there is a war, and if you go to the cemeteries, you definitely know there is a war, but you do have a kind of a civil life. So you have like different paces. How do you address that in the plan of recovery of Ukraine? How do you address this division of the country?
First of all, Ukraine is united, so it's not like divided, it's united.
Of course.
Yeah, so yes, we do have a front line, we do have territories that are close to the front line, and in terms of economic, we are trying to provide them special terms and conditions so to increase the business activity there. For example, Kherson region, my native town, Chernigiv region, Sumy region, so we're trying to give some additional like granting money or loans based on another condition, so to facilitate business activity there, because it's very important. And you might be surprised, but in Kharkiv, and I really appreciate and I admire that business, they are staying in Kharkiv. They don't want to leave. They don't want to relocate. They want to stay in Kharkiv. So that's why from our side, what we need to do to provide them conditions and tools to incentivize them to stay there and to provide business activity, because the resilience, it's not an abstract like terms, it's very concrete, and it can be measured by some tools, by anti-missile system. It can be measured by the humanitarian aid that we're providing to this region. So what we can do just to give some special conditions so they can feel themselves secure and they can provide the activity, because it's very important that Ukraine is united and we keep fighting, and we want to extend our activity and we want to get more investors. So that's why we just need to understand this specificity that Kherson, that have been deoccupied, they need some more assistance from the central government rather than other cities. So that's why we, like a country, understand it perfectly well and that we're ready to provide it because there is no more or less important region for us. For us, it's very important to keep this unity and to get, as I said, economy keep operating, because, as I said, we finance the armed forces, we finance purchase of the weapon from our own income. So that's why it's crucial for us, for economy, for the whole regions to operate.
Yeah, civil society is like, without the civil society, Ukraine would have not withstood the war against Russia. I mean, civil society, they're doing miracles from day one, for sure. We've been talking about workforce, and we've been talking about Ukrainians. Millions of Ukrainians had to flee their country, especially women and children, and many are living in Germany. And there are surveys. One is from the Ukrainian Center for Economic Strategy, that the readiness to go back is decreasing. It was 80%, now it's 60%. Svenja Schulze, what do you think? It's important for Ukraine to bring back these employees, the Ukrainians, women, children, men, but what can Germany do? And if you allow a second question, isn't there a risk that there might be something like a competition between labor markets? Ukrainians, I mean, we need skilled laborers, Ukraine needs skilled laborers, so isn't there a risk that we might compete for the best people and they can choose, which from perspective of the people would be great?
I think it's not a risk, because we also benefit from very well-educated people, very well-educated Ukrainians, and as long as they stay with us, that helps us to deal with our lack of skilled workforces. And if they go back, that helps Ukraine. And to go back to Ukraine, I think it is crucial that we create prospects for the Ukrainians. And that is what we do together. They need to be sure that they have a house, that there is power every day, that there is water, that they can work there. And therefore, rebuilding Ukraine is so crucial. People want to go back, they want to go home to their family, to their known environment. And until this time, we can also benefit from these very well-educated people. And what we need to create now is a better alliance for skilled workers. And therefore we build this skills alliance, because we need to talk about what is needed in Ukraine, how we can train people in Ukraine and Ukrainians that are here, how we can organize that the right skills are delivered. And there are a lot of changes. I was really impressed to see what changes for educating, for example, doctors. They need more emergency medicine at the moment. So how we can support Ukraine to change the way of educating their people, and therefore building alliance for that is important. We do that together bilaterally. For example, for the energy sector, we educated a lot of women to be energy experts now. That was really helpful to rebuild the energy system of Ukraine, but that is only one example. So bringing all the donors together, bringing all the ones who wants to help Ukraine together, also in the aspect of skills, I think that is an important topic.
Please let me add.
Maybe I would add.
But please let me just add one topic to this question. You mentioned that it's like a joint effort to, and workers will go where they find good conditions. But in summer of 2022, there has been adopted by Ukrainian government and parliament a set of regulations limiting workers' rights. There has been much critique. Trade unions weren't happy with it, and it's like these zero-hour contracts that we know from neoliberal Britain. Is this, it's for the time of the war, as far as I understand, but is this the right way to bring back Ukrainian workforce? And is it the way to Europe?
Yeah, first of all, I would say that I think that majority of Ukrainians want to return back home. All our surveys show that, of course, there should be several conditions. First of all, it's security guarantees. So, of course, it would be perfect to be the member of the NATO alliance. So, and of course, I think it would be the main conditions for Ukrainians to return back home. Second thing, it's, of course, it's a workplaces for Ukrainians that are now staying abroad. I think that's third, but maybe it should be put even on the higher position. It's social infrastructure. I mean, kindergartens and schools with the shelters. So that's why we're so focused on rebuilding the shelters along the Ukraine. And after that, I think that the majority of Ukrainians will return back. So if you speak about the competition between countries, I think it's now we're not able to compete with Germany because it's absolutely different livelihood conditions. So that's why people that are staying in Germany, for instance, right now, we are grateful that you host them. We're grateful that this time they use for getting new skills and experience, but we want them to return back home to use this new skill that they obtain and experience to rebuild the country on a new level. I think that actually it's a time to pass the new labor code because now we lived on a code that had been adopted during the USSR. Of course, the modern conditions have been, yes, in USSR, you are smiling, but yes, we are still working based on this regulation. And of course, the time has been changed. We have amended like maybe 200 times or even more. So I think that, of course, it should be new labor code, and there should be different types of agreements. I mean, labor agreements for distance work, for instance, because now it's regulated in a separate way. So that's why for these zero contracts, I'm not aware of this, but in general, we expect that it would be not less than 7 types of agreements with the employers and employees. So I think that it should be like a flexible terms and conditions for hiring and firing people. And if you would ask business, I see business representative here in the results, they would say, of course, we should pass this regulation. And I think that war is not an embargo on making the on passing this labor code, and we are working very hard, and we would discuss it with the trade unions, with the Association of Employers on that, but it's timely to look on this regulation and to see how we can improve it, because the war requires more flexible conditions for both, for employees and employers.
And if the war is going, nobody knows when the war will be ending. So if it's going on for quite some time, it might be months, it might be years, then for this time, you will stick with these new labor market regulations. For the time of the war, you said.
We need to have the new labor market regulations. We need, because in a situation when there is like 2 options for you, to work or to fight, you should have different options how you can work. You can work at home, you can work part-time, because for now, if you look at the labor market, you might see there are like we don't have like a contract. Just companies can make it in parallel with making the record through the knižka. Labor book, or how it calls. Do you have labor books? No contracts. We also want to have a contract because it's fair to know what kind of terms and conditions of your labor activity. So that's why I think that it's timely to pass the new regulation. And as I say, war is not an embargo on making some reforms. I think it's time to make these reforms because, as I said, we are providing so many. We just passed the law for corporate governance reform. It's a wartime, but we still need a good regulation for our state-owned companies. I think for the labor market as well, we need to move further and to pass the new regulation because I think that country needs it.
I just got the hint that it's, I think if you want to go to this other conference, I think you have to go. It's 7:45 already, or do you still have a moment? Please stay as long as, for the, or can you stay?
I just will stay for 5 minutes because your question is very interesting. Yeah.
I hope so.
Svenja answered and then yes.
Svenja Schulze, but then I would take the possibility to ask Julia Sviridenko another question. Yes. So this is like the tactic of journalists. Yeah. You were mentioning you want to attract private investors, and you were mentioning, I don't know if I think in your speech you mentioned that you already have special projects that you can present. Can you give us a clue about how will it be? How do you want private investors to attract private investors? Because they need security. But on the other hand, in the west of the country, you can work.
You know, actually, on war risk insurance, for myself, I would say that it was evaluation of my thoughts on war risk insurance. At the beginning of war, I thought that it's only one incentive that can force investors to come to the country. But now I understand that it's not. Because we do have war risk insurance in place. For example, MIGA, as a part of the World Bank, are able to provide war risk insurance coverage. For example, for instance, for industrial park in Lviv, they have already provided this insurance. DFC is willing to provide insurance for US companies. Ukrainian Export Credit Agency starts to provide insurance for Ukrainian companies willing to set up investment projects. So it's not actually the only one incentive that can force or can impact the willingness of foreign companies to come to the country. So, but we do have it for the war risk insurance, and we're grateful to 15 export credit agencies globally that provide finance and war risk insurance for their own companies willing to deliver their equipment on Ukrainian market. Second, so we have set up a program for industrial parks, and now we're able to refund the cost for connectivity. So we passed all this necessary regulation during this year. The third one, we also have a program for the investors willing to invest up to more than 12 million euros. So we also have a special special program where we're able to refund at least like 30% for the investment. So we do have several programs that can incentivize investors to come. But in general, I would say that Ukraine, it's not only about humanitarian help, but it's about business. Mm-hmm. It's a big market, sure. And we are on the way to our on the way to EU pass. So I think that we would be the part of big single European market. So that's why it's about perspectives and about prosperity. So it's not only about humanitarian support. So that's why there are like plenty of opportunity, and we bring to URC different projects in agri-processing, in energy, in renewables, in green metallurgy. So that's why there are like plenty of opportunity. And Svenja just mentioned IT and digitalization. We are very, I would say, how to say, digitalized country within Europe, because probably all Ukrainians here knows that we have all our life in the phone. DIA application, we have everything from passports, documents for my child, driving license, everything in our phone. And actually it helped us to maintain the country when the war just started, because we were able to make the registration for unemployment people. We were able to make the payment for unemployment for IDPs. So that's why it's something where we can share our experience with Europe as well. So that's why Ukraine, it's about the plenty of opportunity for businesses. And after we would deregulate the labor market, it would have more even advantages than now.
It's a business dream. The EU Commission has declared that it wants to start talks with Ukraine, and the road to Europe is clear for all Ukrainians. It's clear anyway where they want to go and that they want to join, and they're happy to join. But there are still some obstacles. Ukraine managed to do a lot, but one of the topics that has to be addressed is corruption. Can you share a little bit of your thoughts on that topic? Because I'm sure, I mean, Germany wants to invest, wants to support Ukraine, you want support, you want private investors. So how do you deal with this, I would say, ongoing topic?
Sonia, did you saw any corruption issue during your travel to Ukraine?
How do you, for example?
No, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, if you
it's the second, the most popular question.
Well, maybe it's because when you go to Ukraine, it doesn't take long until you come across corruption, or you come across people who talk to you about that.
No,
well, I'm sorry.
No.
The longer you travel, the more you know.
No, I think that, this reaction, it's, because of that fact, I'm sorry that I'm telling this, it's, it's an old Russian narrative. Yes, it is.
Well,
we have improved so much our anti-corruption activity. If you look at these 200 indicators, you might see that in judicial sector, in anti-corruption area. Of course, we need to improve a lot in our business environment, but we have done so much during the last 5 years, I would say, and it's despite the fact of the war that is lasting, like this invasion for the last 2 years. If you look at our Verkhovna Rada meetings, you would see that we are passing like 100, different types of laws just to make our institution stronger, to make it independent, and just to lift all this narrative on the corruption.
But that's very good news, because if it's just a Russian narrative, we can just fight the narrative, and then there are no problems.
Actually, it's a huge task to fight the
Svenja
Russian
Schulze,
narrative.
would you agree? It's just a Russian narrative that we can fight, and it's just fake info, and we just ignore it like we ignore any Russian narrative falsely about Ukraine.
I think that the Ukrainian government is very aware that they need to fight against corruption, and they do so. They find people who are not work like to the rules, and they act so as we do. Having this system to fight against corruption, I think that is very important, and bringing that forward. That is what gives investors more security, that they can invest also in Ukraine. And that is what I see what the government is doing, working on that, showing that they work, there were some people that do not the right jobs, but they were fired. So that is the way how it works, and the law is there, the judgments are there, and that I think the government is aware that they need to fight every day against corruption. So as every country who is in a war, in a situation where it is not easy to find the ways from where the money is going. So, but that is daily work, and it is done.
Julia Sviridenko, please tell me, there are 2 days and there will be intense talks. This is just a warm-up. And do you have like concrete expectations, like some things they will say, this is the minimum we take, this is what we hope for as a maximum?
So actually, if we speak about some concrete deliveries, so I really expect that we would be able partly to solve to pay attention to energy problem and to solve this problem partly. Because, as I said, we need to restore 3 or 4 gigawatt before the heating season. We can use it with the old, actually, equipment that Germany is ready to provide us with, and I think other partners can join this initiative. And also, we need to bring gas turbines equipment. We need to bring gas pistons equipment, so to be able to generate at least additional 1 gigawatt. So we have very concrete goals for this URC, and I think that the energy is going to be the main topic among these 2 days, because without energy we won't be able to implement any investment projects. So that's why we need to solve the problem with energy. It's #1 priority. Also, together with Slovenia, we would be focused on very important issue that she just mentioned. It's reskilling and retraining Ukrainians. Now we are facing the structural unemployment when employees are not able to find employees with appropriate skills. So that's why to train and to retrain people and train and to retrain women because of the mobilization, it's #1 priority, because during the wartime the role of women are reconsidering and they are taking more responsibility and they need to find appropriate jobs, so to be able so to be the core of the family. So that's why we need to train and to give them additional skills so they can able to find the appropriate workplaces for themselves. So that's why I think that with this human dimension, human resources dimension is very important as well.
Svenja Schulze, was kann Deutschland tun in den nächsten 2 Tagen, um der Ukraine zu helfen, das zu erreichen?
I answer in English still. But,
I'm sorry.
No problem.
I want to joke, but I won't. You know?
No. The question what we can do to
Please do. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How can Germany assist Ukraine in achieving these goals?
Yeah, I think it is very important that we build alliances on this conference. And alliances for bringing forward, for example, small and medium-sized companies. Because the small and medium-sized companies, they are the backbone of the Ukrainian economy. They need to be stabilized. And building an alliance, an international alliance, that helps to stabilize the economies that exist in Ukraine and bring new economy in. That is one of the things that we need to bring forward. We need the skill alliance, joining the forces for skilled labor force. We need more awareness for the municipalities, for the local level, because they are able to rebuild Ukraine. And we have 200 partnerships between German cities and cities in Ukraine, and that is a very helpful connection. And do that with more countries, with more local municipalities. I think that would be a step forward, building an alliance on a local level, on an alliance from cities. That is also something that is needed. And preparing the way into the EU. Julia mentioned that before. That is important, and that is also an important part here on the Ukraine Recovery Conference.
Thanks a lot. I'm waiting for a call from Zelensky any minute. I'm not sure. Do you have to go? Can you stay for a little bit longer?
I need to go, but if you don't mind, I just want on the final stage to say that please. Yes, actually, thank you for this discussion, and I'm so, I'm not nervous on the corruption issue, but for the corruption perception index, we have, increased the most among all countries globally last year. So that's why I also think it's a good argument. And thank you once again for this discussion. We really expect a lot of deliveries along the next 2 days in different areas, in business dimension, in human resources dimension, and of course in reconstruction itself, because there is going to be many different agreements on finance and the local reconstruction and recovery. So I think that we expect to have very fruitful discussion and meetings, and I would like to say once again thank you. And for those one who are staying in Ukraine, Ukrainians, and staying in Germany, Ukrainians, I would just to say that we're doing everything that is possible to bring peace And we are preparing for the Peace Summit that is going to take place on 15th of June this month. So we are trying to create all necessary conditions to incentivize you to return back home, because we are waiting for you. Мы чекаем на вас. And thank you for this discussion, and слава Україні.
Дякую. Дякую. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I think your two vices will step in. Thanks.
Okay, two. I will bring one with me.
So we will have one up here, one of you, or two of them. Please. Please.
Hello.
Mr. Kuzio?
Yes.
Ms. Berezhnya? So now the floor is open. We touched many topics, and I'm waiting, or we are waiting for your questions. There are 2 microphones as far as I know. Please raise your hand, and I hope I will discover everybody who wants to add something or to have a question. The lady over there. Can you please say to who is your question? Who do you want to address with your question?
To our Minister Svenja Schulze.
Okay.
I prepared a little bit because my English is not so perfect. Moment, bisschen Wasser hier. Sie halten das, okay. So. What about Ukrainian women in Germany? They are waiting for jobs. My friend, she is waiting for ich sage es mal in Deutsch, die Bewertung der Gleichwertigkeit ihres Diploms for 8 months. 8 months. On the same time, we can hear in the radio, in the TV, Ukrainian women have to go to work. So, how can we help them? And I propose that our enterprises, our factories, businesses, like PVC, we come from PVC, today was a conference in PVC, and other enterprises that have experience and interest in Ukrainians should provide jobs here in Germany for these women in the area of corruption prevention, because corruption is very high in the Ukraine. I don't believe what the minister has said in this moment. Let us show them, the Ukrainian women, what we do and how we do it with success. And women could then take this knowledge back to the Ukraine. And this is, in my opinion, a win-win situation for both nations. But please give the Ukrainian women not only jobs on the registration cast in the supermarket. They have, a lot of them have a high education. And if you remember very well, Mr. Schulze, last year I told you already, and you give me a good, you said, please go to the conference about Ukraine's recovery and so on. But in this year, no one is solved in this way.
Thanks a lot. Frau Schulze.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that question. I think it is important that we get better in Germany too. We are very bureaucratic and integrating skilled labor workforce from abroad. If you are not from the EU, it is not so easy to get into the skilled labor force market. So that is something we are working on. Hubertus Heil started a big program to integrate Ukrainian women better in our market, because the companies themselves could decide what do they need, and are the people well educated to do that jobs. That doesn't need to be decided by the government. That could these competences is also in the companies, and being more flexible in that, and that's not easy for Germans to being flexible. That is something that is needed, and we are working on that, but we are still not where we need to be, because there are a lot of women, I absolutely agree, that do not work on their level of education. They have lower jobs that doesn't fit to their competencies, and that is something where we need to be better. And because on the other hand, we have a lack of skilled workers, and there are skilled workers, and we are not able to get them in the right jobs, and that is something we are working on. But there are still persons who get not in the right places, and so we are still on the way.
You want to add something?
Yes, just a short comment on what's been said. And actually, it's very easy to speak about corruption in Ukraine when you do not live in Ukraine. And I do agree that there are a lot of rumors and a lot of things that are really being shared to undermine our stability in these difficult times that we are going through. And we have a very strong civil society, actually, but a lot of representatives of our civil society do not want to go to the government to work. And that is also a bad thing, and they are talking about corruption. So maybe we should look on it from a very different perspective. And with regards to the education of women, I think that tomorrow's deliverables that we are signing together with the German government is aimed at strengthening the education of Ukrainian people, both who stay in Germany and both who are in Ukraine. Because we understand that Ukrainians, in particular Ukrainian women that are now in Germany, will be reskilled here, and then they will come back to Ukraine to work, hopefully, and will benefit for Ukrainian economy. So I think that tomorrow's deliverable is a step on this way.
Thank you for this addition. There was a question that one gentleman in the very back. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gerald. I'm 56 years old and architect living in Berlin. Please let me mention a little story. I was able to make a journey to Donetsk and Kiev in 1993, the time short after the German reunification. Please let me mention that my relatives from the family of my father's side are coming from the federal states of the new federal states of Germany, and the ex-DDR with the wall. In 1993, I started studying architecture at the TU Berlin. From time to time, I would meet the Christian student group Source of Life in the main building of the Technical University in the street of 17 June. We then traveled to Ukraine with this group to Donetsk and Kiev for about 10 days. In Donetsk, we stayed with friendly local host families for about a week. We were a group of students, about 15 people. We were able to discover a bit of the city and give memes and lectures to the local university, at the local university, with the students. It was a very enjoyable week, full of experiences in a different environment. Communication was easy as we spoke German, and the friendly Ukrainian students could almost all speak and understand German.
Excuse me?
It's
a wonderful story, but will there be a question?
No, I want to say only, I want to stimulate in this sense with view to the future to make a student exchange.
Wonderful. There was this lady here in yellow, and one over there. There I have this lady, I have a question here, and I have one here. But the lady in yellow was, I think was the first one. Maybe she gets the mic? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Pilvi Torsta. I'm a director of a European Union agency called European Training Foundation that works on human capital development outside the member states. So has worked, for instance, in Ukraine since late 1990s and continues to do so in the human capital development with the European Union. Background for a study and then a question. We released this spring figures together, ETF, us and UNICEF, about young people who are both in and outside Ukraine, Ukrainians. And 70% of them said that they had actually changed their sort of study and career plans as a result of the full-scale aggression. And 2/3 said that they would actually like to have skills that are more relevant for the Ukrainian future reconstruction than they previously thought. So of course, very positive message, but of course for all the analysis we all have now after 2 years, it gets harder to return for many reasons. So perhaps for the ministers, both from Germany and from Ukraine, where do you see are probably the most important incentives for this generation who really have this commitment and feeling and actually also planning? That what do you think at the moment would be probably the elements you would like to also develop here as we then develop the Skills Alliance, and we've been developing a sort of skills guarantee approach with the EU to help to really have the alliance as a sort of broad policy approach for years to come. Thank you.
Question to Svenja Schulz, right?
I think both of us. Yeah. Ministers.
Ministers, right.
So may I start? I think it is really important for bringing people back to Ukraine that they have fair wages, that they have good jobs, and that they have a perspective for that. Because the very good skilled young ones, they can work everywhere they want. And so to be attractive, that is what we will discuss in this alliance in this Skills Alliance, because that is something that is needed for Ukraine, and that is something where we also have an interest, also we in Germany, that the young people are well trained, that they get the best education they can, and that they work wherever they want and in Ukraine, because they have the language, and that's the best place where they could get their career. And having the right incentives for that is what we will discuss also in the Skills Alliance. What can we do? What is the right education, or what we need to deliver in the country where they are, and what it needs to be done in Ukraine. And I think a fair wage, good jobs, that is something that is absolutely needed.
You want to add something?
Yeah, just on top of that, you mentioned a very good aspect that young people are going to change like their career path into their views to be relevant and to be useful for Ukrainian reconstruction. And that is exactly the concept that we are now popularizing in Ukraine, that we need to think about lifelong learning. We no longer can live with a set of skills that we had and to work on the same position as we worked. We need to rethink this and to be useful. Whenever you are a youth representative of a silver economy, so-called, you need to think where you can be the most effective for Ukrainian reconstruction. So actually, to add to what Ms. Schulze said, that one of the career paths that we are now promoting in Ukraine is also entrepreneurship, because it's a place in the sphere where you don't see like a ceiling in your income and where you can rely on your talents and your enthusiasm. So it's also one of the paths that we are promoting as careers.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah, just let me jump in for a moment, just to correct a bit the gender thoughts as well. My portfolio actually is the investments in private sector development and the international financial corporation. But anyway, as the representative of the Ukrainian society, I'd like also to say that there are so many Ukrainians, highly educated, highly skilled abroad, and they are now returnees, and like not each of them will find out actually the same or the similar level of the what they were doing in Ukraine, right? So there are so many opportunities will be in Ukraine down the road, so that they can realize themselves in the country. I mean, and that's probably having, even once we will have more and more private investors and the investments in Ukraine, they need the workers, they need also the managers and the entrepreneurs, so that there are lots of opportunities will be down the road for those highly educated people who are like abroad now.
Thanks a lot. There is the gentleman over here.
Thank you. I'm Bogdan Ferenc, and I'm representing Social Democratic Platform of Ukraine. And by the way, we only one organization, non-governmental, that was able to change the attitudes towards social democracy in Ukraine. Because, you know, it's not so easy, especially when you are working with young people. That's why, in cooperation with Friedrich Ebert Foundation, especially with Kyiv office, we are now able to have in Ukraine a lot of discussions on the decent job that you mentioned, dear Mrs. Schulz, on fair wages, and also how to strengthen the role of local communities in resilience and recovery. Today we had, by the way, a brilliant discussion and panel on this with Yulia, my colleague. And I think that when we are just discussing the role of young people, reskilling, because with Mrs. Berezhna a few months ago, we also had the discussion how it is necessary to reskill our young people, women, in the context of current challenges that Russian war just caused. That's why, what is the difference between the Berlin conference, I mean, organized and hosted by the German government, and for example, London and Lugano conference? I think that we will hear, and I hope tomorrow, more discussions on how to achieve not only resilience and recovery, but how to achieve fair recovery with human-centered approach, with the role of education in this context, especially vocational education, and with creation a decent job at the local level, first of all. That's why it's just reflection. Thanks a lot for these strong wordings, and good luck for tomorrow's conferences. Thank you.
So a statement and no question, but there is this gentleman over here who raised his hand quite some time.
Yeah, I actually wanted to add already something when we discussed this topic of corruption. Also first, a little introduction of myself. I'm Kai Matzner. I'm working for Fraunhofer Gesellschaft, and I'm working for long-term on R&D cooperation projects with Ukraine. So I have a record of maybe 20 projects in Ukraine with Ukrainian organizations. And when it comes to this topic, corruption, we need to be careful in Germany not to be over-paranoid, because I face this every day when we have, because in this R&D projects we have transfers, monetary transfers to Ukraine, and we're having often an over-paranoid German administration that is, and this paranoid administration is getting close to really kill the projects, that you cannot deal with the administration anymore. I mean, we can never exclude 100% that there may be no corruption, but we need to, this needs to be balanced, this control. But as we have everywhere in the press here that Ukrainians are corrupt, the whole German administration believes Ukrainians are corrupt, so they need to look much more careful. And then I wanted also to support Ms. Berezhna. I noticed also in Ukraine few corruption cases, and there is really a strong civil society. When the people notice anything is not good, is against the country, they really go on the street, they scream, they use their social networks. And as Ukraine, as everybody knows, is not Russia, really, they listen to this and the people get through with this. Also, there is really a self-control already in this country. Ukrainians like to demonstrate.
Another appeal and no question, I understand, right? not really a question, but rather an appeal.
I wanted to say my opinion on this because
There
I
is a
felt it's
question over
important.
here. Oh, many.
Katarina
The lady over
Pavlova,
there.
CRISP NGO. So to continue on the topic of the Ukrainians abroad, just the number of that is incredible. There are 25 million Ukrainians abroad. It's 20 million diaspora and 4.9 million protection seekers. And they are both a target group and a partner for the recovery of Ukraine. And this is like, I'm happy to hear that the Ukrainian government is more and more seeing the Ukrainians abroad as partners for recovery, and this is seen, for example, in the new position in the MFA, the ambassador at large for the global Ukrainian community, which is great. I know that there is also a strategy under development for how to better involve those people in the recovery and in general in the Ukrainian processes. So this would be my question probably to Ms. Berezhna, if you could show some more light on what is the strategy of involving the global Ukrainian community in the recovery of Ukraine and maybe specifically in the EU integration. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Actually, in the government, we sometimes say that Ukrainians that are now living abroad is the first step towards our European integration. Even before the negotiations to the EU have started, we have already been practicing this principle of free movement of workers. So it's a big challenge for us now to be in a place where we need our people actually to come back to Ukraine as soon as, according to our calculations, to grow at least 7% GDP per year. By 2030, we need 4.5 Ukrainian people of the working age to come back. But at the same time, we understand that we are moving towards the EU and we need the rights of Ukrainian people who are working in the European countries to be defended, to be saved according to those principles. So actually the best role of Ukrainian people who are abroad, maybe it would be rather frank to say, is to think how they can come back and take part in the processes inside of Ukraine. Ukraine actually needs so much qualified, competent people to work now for Ukraine in various sectors, for the government, for the business. You know, at the eastern border of Europe, we are actually defending all the continent. And if you open a Facebook line, every day you see that some friend of friend has died. And we are fighting, and we need support in that fight very much. So, for instance, we see that some of the bright individuals have decided to come back to Ukraine. I already mentioned, like, for instance, Mikhailo Vinnytsky, who was a diaspora representative in Canada, and now he came back and serves as a Deputy Minister of Education in Ukraine. So I understand that the most important value of Ukrainian people is freedom, freedom to choose where to live, what to do. And Ukrainians have always been free to decide what they want to do. But the question that every one of us, especially Ukrainian person, should ask to yourself, what can I do here and now to help my country? Because it's very easy now to lose our freedom and to lose our sovereignty. It's a very, moment that I do not exaggerate and do not speaking in panic, but Russia is very close, not only to Europe, but to all democratic Europe. Not to Ukraine, but to all of Europe, yes.
Thank you. There is one gentleman over there.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Viktor Diordiev. I'm a private investor originally from Ukraine, but based in Germany for 10 years. Question to Frau Schulze in the first place. Ukraine has already turned into, in a way, a test lab for advanced military technologies, defense tech. Are you willing, when you're helping Ukraine to rebuild and build a new economy, are you willing to let Ukraine have some innovative regulations, special economic zones, favorable tax regimes, or you're looking more at a stricter EU-wide regulations?
I think that is a question for Ukraine, because Ukraine need to decide how they want to rebuild their economy. What we can do is describe the way into the EU. That is what we offer. But if Ukraine chooses that, that is the decision of Ukraine. We offer a way into the EU, and that means you need to accept a EU regulation. That is part of being part of the European Union. But if Ukraine gets part of the European Union, that's also an interesting market and an interesting community. So that is not my decision. It is decision on the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian society, how, in which details they want to go that way.
Yeah, I would add that on my side that you're actually from the military tech, right? Is it correct? Which sector? Sorry, just.
No, I'm a private investor, so I'm not from military tech.
But a private investor into which industry?
Different ones, but not military tech.
I mean, all right.
Tech industry in the first place.
Nevertheless, so we have the industrial parks regime in Ukraine. And the government, from the government perspective, what we really need now to invest and to attract investors into the military tech, into the energy, decentralized systems, because of the lost centralized generation capacity, and the processing industry and the agriculture processing especially. Why? Because we'd like to build up the highly value-added production in Ukraine and the products just instead of the exporting raw materials. So we have the industrial parks, and I would suggest you to learn more about it. We have the exemptions of the taxes, VAT for buying equipments, and other incentives. But if that's the only issue, because we believe that it should be like well-tailored solutions for one or another investor, depending on the scale of investments, depending on the regions that would like to invest, and the industries itself. So the same for the significant investments law and others. I would strongly suggest tomorrow to attend the recovery forum during the URC conference, in which the flagship projects also will be highlighted, and the CEOs of the foreign investments in Ukraine will be also presenting their projects. We're going to have 60 of stands, 20 Ukrainian, 20 German, 20 international companies, also with the productions there, and we will be presenting also the investment guide, which will, especially for the conference, we prepared with the Kyiv School of Economics Institute. So there are, in terms of the incentives and the risk instruments and the affordable loans or other incentives, that should be purely tailored for the investors. Okay.
Time is running out for our talk, but there is one gentleman in the back. And I'm afraid this has to be the last question, but we will go on talking at the Stehempfang. Please.
Мене звати Михайло Волинець. Я голова
I am Mikhailo Volinets. I am the head of the trade union. I would like to thank Ms. Schulze, Friedrich Ebert Stiftung Foundation, and German trade unions, because business representatives and representatives of trade unions are here at this conference compared to Lugano and London summits. And we asked questions to the Ukrainian government. What about the representatives of the trade unions and about the business representatives? Why don't you delegate those representatives to summits in London and Lugano? This lesson has been learned, and now we are here. But my question is as follows. Recently, there were more than 50
порушують права людини праці.
laws which violate the rights of people and the rights of the trade unions. Is this the right way to get back Ukrainians who are now abroad? No, the answer is no. Will the military servants, 1 million or more people who come to civil life and see that they have no rights more, how is it going? There is a bill of law about the labor without any discussion with the representatives of trade union, and the international experts have discovered there are violations of 22 international conventions. They did not learn any lessons. Instead, the Ministry of Economy, again without any discussions with partners, they include these mistakes into the new legislation, into the labor code. So they foresee individual contracts. Well, thank you.
Please.
Very short answer to your question. Боже, українською чи англійською?
Sorry?
Я буду українською, щоб мене почув пане Михайле. Ми вже
Of course, I will answer Ukrainian.
Can you in English?
Okay.
There will be a translation.
Okay, so
There will be a translation.
So
yeah,
I speak in English. Okay.
If you speak English, the gentleman will understand. Everybody who doesn't know English will understand the Ukrainian.
It's a very big honor for us to choose this particular place to practice social dialogue as government and representatives of the trade union. And actually, just to answer to your question on the law on labor, now the government of Ukraine, together with the social partners, is working not on the law on labor, but on the complex act, which is called the Labor Code. And as you may know or may not know, we have received more than 100 of different commands from both trade unions. Mr. Shubin, who is there, can confirm because he also helps us to write this code, and from employees. So actually, I would not tell this unsupported messages. The social dialogue in Ukraine is working. We are working on a complex act which is called Labor Code. This Labor Code is fully in line with European directives that support human rights, and I would better use the power, strong power of trade unions, especially in Europe, on supporting Ukraine and uniting partners around our country and the war that is going on in our country. So I would better maybe recognize some of your messages on this conference to be united. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. We have to come to a close. Dear Minister, dear Svenja Schulze, dear Vice Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, thanks you for your patience and your questions and your interest. We touched many topics that will be deepened in the next 2 days here in Berlin, and that will they will be pressing for quite some time. And whenever you have a chance to go to Ukraine, do it if you haven't been there. It's a fascinating country. Thanks a lot.